That cryptocurrency that you told me to invest in, I've made millions from it. I'm so grateful for that insight because I was literally down to my last dollar.
Teal is a psychic and energy healer with a gift she calls Claircognizance, and she's here today to make you rethink what's actually driving your results.
The most successful men or women that I've connected with in readings are very connected to themselves. They know their worth. They don't allow their emotions to feed into their businesses. If you want to be extremely successful, you need to know your worth, your weaknesses and your strengths.
We get into why self-worth is the strongest pattern she's seen across successful people, how to train your intuition to make sharper decisions, and the reading that led one of her clients to make millions.
Could I ask you the same question and you could actually tell me what to invest in?
Yes.
Just a quick one before we get into it. If you're new here, we're building this thing episode by episode, and every subscriber genuinely helps move the needle forward with us getting the next guest on. So if you like what we do, hit subscribe now so you don't miss the next one. That's it. Let's begin. So the way I'd like to start the podcast is simply just share my own personal journey and experience working with yourself, because it's crazy, especially coming from like the business world, to explore things like working with a psychic and doing things like ceremony and different spiritual practices. But for me, it's been transformative to help improve the quality of my life. And I think that the best place I'd like to start, and the story that hits home for me, is the first ceremony we did working with psilocybin. And I can remember today, I had this experience that blew my mind. I was like, how the fuck is this possible? Where we had come out of the meditation, working with the psilocybin, and then I look up and this guy had like channeled my dad, who'd passed away when I was 7. I hadn't seen him in 19 years. And I get up and I look at this guy who's like literally acting out the same mannerisms, like everything. It just like freaked me out, and I just started bawling my eyes out crying. But it was like the best healing I could have experienced to just get it all out. Anyways, long story short, I like had this journey which was just transformative and put me on this path where like, I don't need to be convinced. I'm fully convinced, and whatever the fuck goes on here is legit. So thank you for your time. So I'd love to unpack everything of what it's like to be in your shoes, and I guess chat a bit about being a psychic and ceremony. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for the invitation. And circling back on the first experience that you had with psilocybin, when we're working with psilocybin, it is a plant medicine that helps you explore your inner reality. So if there's anything that is unprocessed or unresolved within,
magic mushies.
It will bring it to the forefront of your consciousness to come into healing resolve. So in that moment, you had that experience of reconnecting with your father. And this person representing your father, representing his mannerisms, the way that he used to communicate with you. This is because this person is literally channeling this information through that collective consciousness that we're tapping into through psilocybin.
Do you reckon it was the guy channeling my dad, or my brain just making it up?
It was both. It was because the actual mannerisms were happening in real time for you. You were observant of that. It wasn't something that you had created within your mind. It was happening in real time.
And I still remember you come, like I'm on all fours. I couldn't even like, the guy says to me.
You were deep. You were very deep.
Because I like look at it, I'm like, it catches me off guard, because I didn't think any of this was real or possible. Like I'd done mushies once or twice recreationally, but I wasn't like going out into the bush doing them every weekend, like what have you. But I didn't really know that this experience could even be had. Mm-hmm. And I still remember I'm on all fours, like just crying, and you come over and just like put your like hand on me, and it just like this feeling of like a mother like safety.
Energy.
Just really came over, and was like, I can just let it all out. It was crazy, eh? What's it like in your shoes, witnessing and experiencing that for others? Like, what are you seeing?
As a psychic, when I'm in that space, when I'm holding space for people journeying through psilocybin, and when we're looking at journeying with psilocybin, we're looking at a dose from about 1 to 5 grams. This really allows you to tune into your inner reality, expands your consciousness, and to create an inner dialogue with self. So when I'm tuning in this capacity and I'm observing everyone and I'm walking around the room, because that's what I'm ultimately doing, I'm holding space for you in your process.
Yeah.
What it looks like to me is like a little movie, a little screen above your crown, above your head. And it allows me to see what it is that you're navigating, the thoughts, the energies, whether you are experiencing a multidimensional experience where you are traveling outside of this reality and connecting to source, connecting with God, whatever it may be. Or it might be an aspect of yourself. It may be a blockage or a limitation in your mind, and you're needing to meet that part of yourself to come into healing resolve around it. I'm able to tune into where you're at and support you in the way that you need best. So that's why people notice I come over at the perfect time. I'll place my hand just to know that to support you and help you to know that I'm here with you throughout that journey.
T, you mentioned a couple words, God, source, and then healing resolve. What are you referring to when you mention things like God, source, and healing resolve?
So I believe in God. God is the universal creator of all. Okay. I believe that we all have an aspect of God within us.
Yep.
Okay. And this is represented as Christ consciousness.
Christ consciousness.
Yes.
Not Buddha or
Not
Muhammad?
Buddha, Christ
Christ.
consciousness.
Okay.
And how we experience this is through our intuitive knowing, our gut instinct. That is the Christ consciousness that resides within us. We all have the capacity to tune into that. Sometimes it is stifled through our mind, through our logical self. But when we quiet the mind and we're able to tune in, we are able to tune into this all-knowing aspect of self. We are able to tune into this higher power, which is a representation of God's wisdom.
Gotcha. So we, in essence, have a fragment of source God residing within us, intuition, which we can tap into to access this oneness of information or creation.
Most definitely. And we all, when we incarnate in this earth experience, which I believe is a school for the soul,
Yep.
we are able to tune into our fullest potential by living in alignment with our truth, being our most authentic self. A part of purposefulness here is to express our authentic self, to access our unique gifts and talents, and to share them with the world. So I feel that when we have this intuitive capacity to tune in and we're connected to that, and I feel that a lot of children all have this innate connection when they're born. And it is active within us up until the ages of about 5, 6 when we start school. And then that begins to shift because we start taking on conditioning and programming from the outside world. But if we are able to maintain that connection to our intuition from the ages of around 7 to 14, then that intuition will follow us through our entire existence here. And we'll always be able to reflect back on that intuition, which is that inner dialogue with self, which is the representation of your gut instinct, that inner knowing. You know, that little voice when you're driving and you get the voice, okay, turn right. And you turn right and you avoid a crash. You avoid a really hectic car crash. That's your intuition interfering in a good way to guide you to safety, to where you need to be.
Do you know what's crazy? I had a moment, right? I was probably maybe 22. I'd smashed a protein shake and I dropped it, like fell on the floor in the passenger side, and I'm driving and I went to grab it to get it up, and I'd like went into the lane on the very left. That's where you park your car. What do you call that lane? Anyways, like I wasn't really in the road, and if I like in front of me was a car trailer, like a ute trailer, and I was like this close to just like, and I don't know what it was, but something just
your intuition.
Yeah, and I dodged this like experience where I was like saved by the universe from like.
Definitely. And that.
So is that what you're referring to when you say intuition? And
yes, I refer to it as your higher self, your all-knowing self, your intuition, most definitely.
Okay.
And I feel that it's always with us, but it very much gets diluted. Okay. It gets diluted by the logical mind. Okay. So often we will have this intuition come through and we won't action it because we're like, oh, where does that come from? I don't know. I'm just going to keep doing what I normally do. I'm not going to listen to that voice. When we look at the intuition is like a muscle. If we don't use it, we lose it. And our intuition speaks to us through repeated signs and synchronicities. A lot of people reflect back to numbers, seeing repetitive numbers. This is how the universe and your higher self and God speaks to you, to give you signs that you are on the right track, or to help you to bring your awareness around certain aspects of your life.
so, for example, 11:11 would be the time, and if I see that, that's
right alignment.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I see 11:11, for me, it represents that I'm on the right track, that I am on the right path, and it's confirmation from the universe in that regards.
You were saying that people between the age of 7 and I think it was 14, that's the period of nurture, and if you don't, you kind of
Yes. So what happens between the ages of 7 and 14 is that your intuition reactivates. Okay. And it gives you the opportunity to start listening to it. Okay. It's more louder. It's more predominant in your life. And this gives us the opportunity to really tune into it and listen and to hone in on it and nurture that. Or what will happen is we neglect it and we drop into more of the left brain, which is the masculine mind, which is the logistics, the logical mind.
Yeah.
If we don't nurture the right hemisphere of the brain, which is the intuitive, innovative, creative mind, that's where the intuition lies. So what happens when we go to school and when we're being educated, we are dropping in more to that left hemisphere of the brain because it's the logic, and that's what's going to carry us through.
So what happens then if somebody is more in their logic side, not their intuitive? Are they fucked afterwards?
Not exactly. They will have moments of intuition, but they will rely more on their logical mind to make their decisions. Okay?
Yep.
Which means that they will adopt a life that is what they think is best for them rather than what is in alignment with their highest good, what is in alignment with their soul's purpose, their soul's mission.
I can definitely relate to that from my experience. I'd probably say from 7 onwards till maybe early 20s, I was probably more in that sphere. And it wasn't till I'd started doing these different spiritual practices or different work that it kind of cracked me open to being connected to this, where I started then to, as a result of feeling this more connection and not as blocked and logical and rigid, it kind of opened me up to life. And from my experience, when I lost my dad, it kind of takes, well, that was like one catalyst that felt like I was disconnected from creation source life. It was like,
because it's a grief, and when we look at grief generally resides within the body because it's love with nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So what happens is we create this disconnect from love, from our experience of feeling connected to life. So this is what creates this somewhat of a trauma that resides within us, and we need to nurture that aspect of ourselves back into loving awareness.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened to you through that experience that you had in psilocybin.
And it's funny now, because now that I've kind of come out of it, I can see that pattern in others more. And then so when I lived within that pattern, it was like I had this disconnection from like consciousness, the universe, God, and I didn't really feel like that connection to life as much, where now I have this connection, and off the back of that, things are a lot more flowing free. I've got this beautiful partner, this like my life so much more prosperous and abundant. But it was a massive journey to get here. And so I'm curious with like, when people go through this disconnection, maybe like myself, or people that aren't as maybe attuned into their intuitive self, or they don't grow up around it, what would your, maybe not advice, but what's your experience like to kind of help people reconnect, and what is the purpose and the value of reconnecting?
So when we experience adversity, it is to help us to meet ourselves more deeply. Okay. So if we don't see the silver lining within it, then we can get all consumed and we can drop into victimhood and we can become very disconnected. But if we're able to see the higher learning and lesson within that experience, it helps us to evolve on a soul level. It helps us to understand life more better, and it helps us to understand ourselves better. So I feel that the biggest thing that's going to support someone in going through an adversity is taking a step back. Okay, removing the emotional self and looking at what is it here that what is the universe trying to, I guess, mirror back to me? What do I need to come into healing resolve around? What do I need to come into deeper awareness around in my life? Sometimes we have these experiences that are external projections, that it's not actually an adversity that we have, I guess, experienced directly. It's something that has happened, like someone passing away. What is that teaching you? It's bringing you into loving awareness. It's teaching you to reconnect to love, reconnect to yourself. Because in essence, when we come here and we have a human experience, we're coming here to experience all of the emotions, but we are ultimately coming here to experience love.
I really feel like now it's given me this big polarity of like experiencing unconditional love and then the opposite of it. And now it's probably strengthened my like capacity to be more loving more often, because I've experienced the duality of both.
And more compassionate.
Yeah.
More compassionate towards self and towards others.
Yeah.
Again, you're able to see the higher perspective. You're able to remove the human self and look at, okay, what is playing out here? Say if someone's angry and they're projecting, you're looking more deeply at, okay, what's going on in their life right now? Rather than, okay, they're just abusing me in this moment.
Yeah, you kind of see
You're more aware, you're more intentional with how you respond to life, how you react to life and people.
Yeah, you kind of really observe the actual root cause behind why someone's responding the way they do, as opposed to it just being
the physical reaction.
Yeah. So when we come back to things like the intuitive self is a part of the oneness in God, from my experience or research, is there a between God, our soul self, and then our human body, or is it just God and then we become in a human body?
What we have is our intuition, which is our connection to God.
Yeah.
Okay. And basically on our journey, on our earth walk journey here, what we're here to do is bridge the mind, the throat, and the heart. Okay.
Mind, throat, and heart.
Yes, the throat is your authentic expression. Okay, listening to your intuition. The throat is your authentic expression, being authentic. So it's allowing your intuition to guide you from an authentic space and being able to determine when your ego self and your mind is dictating your reality and when your intuition is guiding you. Now, when we look at the intuition is very subtle. Okay, it speaks through, like we mentioned, repeated signs and synchronicities. The ego is very ungrounded. Okay, it makes you make really sharp, hasteful decisions. Okay, so what we're to do here is tune into where we're operating from. Are we operating from a space of connected receptivity to our intuition, or are we operating from a space of survival through the ego?
What do you mean by when you say authentic self and with the throat? I'm curious to unpack that a bit, because I hear a lot of people talk about be your authentic self, but like what actually is that, and what do you mean by that?
To be your authentic self, you need to deeply get to know yourself, what it is that you're passionate about, what you enjoy, what you love doing in life. Once you start accessing that, once you start honing in on that, your authentic expression and who you truly are starts to reveal itself more and more. So when I talk about the throat, I'm talking about honoring yourself, honoring your personal truth, being in right relationship with yourself. When we are in right relationship with yourself, this is when we are our most authentic expression. So to come closer to that, we need to create that deepened connection with self. And how do we do that? Through stillness, through meditation, through breath work, through self-inquiry, not just coexisting in life, meeting life with curiosity, exploring why we do the things we do, exploring why we react to certain triggers.
From your experience, like having seen so much and having a completely different perspective, do you see when people live a more authentic life, do you see the result of that? In other words, are they living a happier, more fulfilled life? Like, what's the actual tangible difference?
Most definitely. They feel more satisfied overall in life because they feel more connected to purposefulness.
More connected to purposefulness.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
When we look at purposefulness, we're looking at what lights us up, what are our gifts and our talents, and how we can be of service to others. Yep. We feel most connected when we are in that right relationship with ourselves, but when we are supporting other people, that makes us feel good. So when we can tune into what it is that is our gift, our innate gift, and we're able to share that. Say, for example, real estate. Your gift is being able to connect and relate to people. Be able to connect and relate to people from all walks of life. You're a really great communicator. You're able to really tune into what people are missing, whether it's the finer details, being able to bring that to a life. Being a real estate agent, you have to have a level of creativity in that as well, imagination, because you're bringing something to life for people. You're walking through a home, you're helping them to create an emotional connection. So there's an aspect of you that is a really good communicator. And when you utilize that to help people, then you can feel more connected in the work that you do. You feel more satisfied.
How do you find or discover your gifts? And how do you distinguish between it being a gift or a skill you've developed over time?
I feel like meeting life with curiosity and meeting your passions, trying new things. When we start to explore and we try new things, we find like what it is that we're interested in, what we're intrigued in. When we listen to our intuition, say if our intuition says, okay, why don't you follow breath work? Explore that, where it might take you, whether you become a breathwork practitioner or whether you tune into an emotion or an energy or access information about yourself that you didn't realize before. So maybe a part of that experience is tuning into, okay, right now I'm working a 9 to 5, I'm working in an office. What I would really love to do is help people. what I would really love to do is be able to help people to connect to their purpose and passion. So how could you do that? Maybe you step forward and you move into the path of being a counselor or being a mentor for someone. So really our intuition is always giving us this feedback in life as to where we should be on our path. And I feel like a lot of people that I connect with in readings, they are following a timeline that is almost their highest timeline, but they followed it through a Western perspective. So maybe they've followed it through education. Say they are a natural healer, but they've gone and they've become a nurse and they are operating more from a Western healing perspective rather than an Eastern or an alternate medicine perspective. So what I do in my sessions, I'm able to really tune into what your soul's purposefulness is and give you the specific tips and tools to help you achieve that.
Yeah, because even from our sessions together, I felt that you were able to really tell me stuff about myself that kind of intuitively or subconsciously I resonated or knew, but maybe consciously due to distractions or things, you might have a million things on the go. You might experience a bit of fog or lack of clarity at times. And I felt when we did our session, it was like you were able to so the way, just to give everybody context, Teal, when I had a session with her, doesn't use tarot cards. She's not asking you questions. She literally looks at has a photo of you in your eyes and then goes and writes like 10 pages of notes prior to the session and just comes to you and just for an hour just reads like pages of notes. You're not like probing me with like asking me questions to try and get the answer. You're just like telling me the facts, which I found to be really, for me, what resonated me too in that was that it didn't feel like your typical like from my lens, there's people out there that do it that you could probably say there's a bit of bullshit behind, where for you it was just like, and so when you were reading stuff out to me, you were like reading, Dan, this is your path, this is your purposefulness, this is this and this, and I found that quite interesting. And maybe if you like can maybe share a bit about what that's like for you, and maybe even to share when you do that and you read me, what those gifts maybe look like and how that comes about, because it's quite interesting. And I think that's probably a path where I've experienced a bit of not struggle, but a lack of clarity at times being a human, is that you kind of navigating this survival mode, doing things for a means to an end to survive and get there, versus on the other scale, maybe following your passions, what lights you up, and kind of, it's like this flow and this dance between the two to get to a point where you're most alive and connected and living this purposefulness and giving back to community. So yeah, I'd love to unpack a bit more about this whole how it all works and share a bit about my journey as well.
Beautiful. So my psychic ability is known as claircognizance, which means I have clear knowing. So what this looks like to me when I'm doing a reading, it looks like an intuitive bubble of information that is dumped into my psyche. Okay,
break that down.
Okay, so for me, it's a clear knowing. It is information, like an intuitive bubble of information that is downloaded into my consciousness.
Yeah.
And the energetics behind it, it's a clear, absolute knowing. That's why I'm very direct and very specific with my information. So claircognizance is clear knowing. It's being able to perceive information beyond logical explanation. Okay.
And where does that information come from?
It comes from source. It also comes from me connecting with your consciousness, very much like telepathy. So what I'm ultimately doing is I get my clients to send me a picture. The reason being is because the eyes are the windows of the soul. It allows me to make that connection. Then I'm able to have a telepathic communication with that God aspect within you, your intuition. Okay. And this is where I receive the information. That's why when I share and I give you feedback, it resonates with you deeply, because this information ultimately comes from you. I'm not connecting with anything outside of you in terms of spirit guardians and guides or angels or anything like this. What I'm ultimately doing is accessing your higher truth, your higher potential. When we look at timelines, when we look at our highest truth and our highest potential, all of that information resides within us. It's our soul's blueprint. When we incarnate here, we choose our highest timeline.
What's highest timeline?
It's our highest potential. It is the timeline where we're the most successful, the most connected to ourselves. So we have the organic flow of life, yeah? And life is kind of happening to us, yeah? Where we have another timeline that can overlap that. And that timeline is you listening intuition, taking inspired action. That's when we notice the synchronicities. That's when we notice these profound opportunities that come into alignment. That is when we are connected to our highest timeline, our highest potential. Otherwise, what happens is we begin to coexist and we just start living life as a consumer, not actually being the conscious curator of our reality.
Outside the podcast, I actually run my own buyer's agency called Both Sides, with its scale and reach built off the back of this podcast, and I thought it was probably about time to plug my own business. It's a boutique service. We only take on a handful of clients a month. We did that on purpose so that everyone gets the proper attention from search to settlement. About 85% of what we buy for owner-occupiers and investors is off-market, and 100% of the time it's below market value, saving clients thousands of dollars and setting them up financially. If you'd like to learn more about what we do, our link's in the bio. All right, back to the show. So you essentially have a conversation with our soul self, our God self, using telepathy to get this wisdom and understanding about our highest timeline.
Also, your purposefulness, what you are here to do.
Yeah.
Also, any health imbalances that you may have. Yeah. It's looking at how you can be the best version of yourself in this human incarnation.
So could we do a live example now? Whether you reflect on the notes that you shared with me last time or are able to tune in now, what would you say is my highest timeline or purposefulness?
Definitely.
To put you on the spot.
So when I reflect back on your reading, what your purposefulness is to be a way shower, to be a leader, okay? To be a bridge between the material physical world and spirituality and help people be the bridge and connect. So you would have one foot in materialism and one foot connected to your intuition, to your spirituality, and help people to connect that aspect of themselves so they can be most successful. When I look at business men and women that I've connected with in readings, the most successful men or women are very connected to themselves. They know who they are. They know their personal truth. They have a really strong center of self. Okay. They also have an emotional maturity where they don't necessarily allow their emotions to feed into their businesses. So they know their worth as well. If you want to be extremely successful, you need to know your worth. You need to know your weaknesses and your strengths.
I can definitely back that up. With the people I've interviewed that are the successful, they've got this like underlying confidence within themselves.
Exactly.
And they may not necessarily be like spiritual, but they've like, or like, I'm a derivative of God, but they've got this like confidence within themselves and
it's
a belief.
magnetic, and you feel it. You feel it.
And they'll do the work, and they're kind of on this path of following their goals, dreams, and desires. They're not subject to the goals, dreams, and desires of other people. They're really like, okay, they've got like this clarity and this, I know this is what I want to achieve, and they get into this momentum of doing the work to get there.
Exactly. And that's their representation of purposefulness. They have clarity. They're clear in their direction. It doesn't mean that you have to be, you have to follow a spiritual ideology or a specific religion. Like, what is most important is being connected to yourself, to be able to tune into your intuition. And they may not even know that they're connecting to their intuition. But most of these people are really creative, innovative thinkers. And that is operating from the right hemisphere of the brain where the intuition lies. So there is intuition giving them feedback along their journey.
It's an interesting conversation because we're the Western world, eh?
Yes.
Yep. So in the Western world, they're probably more entrepreneurial, like producer creative types. And then maybe on the Eastern, you've got maybe more your monk, meditative, native, grounded. It's interesting how in this universe, we've got a balance between the both. But I found in my journey at times, you're trying to navigate between the wisdom and insights of both worlds to understand who you are and maybe have this connection. Because you might hear some spiritual people that shit on the Western like culture, ideology, materialism. And then on the other side, they might praise the Eastern or vice versa. You might have people in the West and shit on like the monks that do nothing and they're just meditating all day and vice versa. What would your advice or opinion be on the average person in Australia that lives within our reality of materialism, that strives to maybe create success? To what degree should we focus on materialism spirituality, Eastern philosophy, Western, like it's very easy to get consumed in not knowing, like, am I being egotistical? Am I being spiritual? Am I connected? Like it can be quite a lot of noise on that topic, if that makes sense. Like how would you, for example, like I had a guy on, Jack Henderson, the other day, and he's probably someone that lives a really strong Western,
in the logical
super
mind,
successful, but
action orientated doing. Yeah,
he's not going and doing a ceremony or meditating, but he's maybe what you'd say in purposefulness. And then there's other people that I know that, for example, other people that maybe meditate or do other things that are really fulfilled and successful in that, right? What advice would you give for the average person that's like, where the fuck do I start? What do I do? How do I understand? Am I being too egotistical? Like how does it all like make sense? Like help us make sense of it.
So I believe our self-mastery is in being able to weave between two worlds. Okay. The two worlds is the material world and the spiritual aspect of self, which is the intuition. So I feel that, say that you're doing a 9-to-5 job, okay, and you're feeling a little bit unsatisfied in life and you're like, okay, there's got to be more. I know that there's something more. I'm not just here to coexist in life. This is an invitation for you to explore life with curiosity. Try new things, see where it takes you. It's so easy in the Western world to get caught up with our daily roles, responsibilities, and be in repetition. This repetition is actually a distraction from ourselves. So if we can have moments where we remove ourselves and we have moments of stillness and solitude where we can create that inner dialogue with our intuition and ask ourselves the important questions, like, what is next for me? Even if you have a pen and paper and you don't even, it's not even about journaling. It's just about writing down the things that are most important to you and then reflecting back on them and looking at, okay, how can I bring more of that, infuse more of that into my daily life? And I feel like being intentional with our time is really important. You know, say if we're really busy, we're working in a 9-to-5, we finish work, we go home and we've got all these other roles and responsibilities. If you can have a paused moment where you're connecting with yourself, where you're giving back to yourself, that may be going to the gym. It may be going for a run, or it may be meditating or doing breath work. Having that conscious and intentional space allows you to connect with that higher self, that intuitive self, to start to receive the answers. So I feel that if we can begin to create like a daily practice in the mornings, even where we're creating intentional time to connect with ourselves, again, through wherever it might be that you connect and relate to, whether it's meditation or breath work, or whether just going to the gym makes you feel good. Just start with that. And then also looking at things that you're interested in, those little intuitive inclinations that drop into your field, following them, taking inspired action, seeing where that leads you. A lot of people right now are not sure what to pursue in life. And I always say to my clients, the most important thing to pursue right now is to pursue yourself. Pursue being the most happiest, connected, healthiest, most present version of yourself. When you focus on those things, that's when the right path reveals itself. That's when your purposefulness reveals itself, because you are connected on all levels of your being. So it all starts with you and your relationship with self.
Yeah.
Because your inner reality ultimately creates your outer reality. So we're talking about mindset here. So inviting positive psychology, inviting positive affirmations, just simply in the mornings, and see how you feel afterwards. See if you feel more connected to life, more connected to yourself.
Yeah, definitely. From my experience, it'd be interesting to get your opinion on this, on when you're saying there's trial different things that help support your being, whether it be going for a run, working out, meditating, breath work. Different seasons of my life, like this morning, for example, I got up, did my stretching, my meditation, and then I went for a run. And for me, going for the run was like an active form of meditation where like I felt like I stacked a win of like I ticked. I could have gone for a walk in the bush or gone for a walk by the beach, but I wouldn't have experienced the same feeling of having a win as if I went for a run. But then some seasons, like going for the walk over the run, feels more supportive at that point in time. And I've done like heaps of different meditation things as well. But sometimes meditation in different seasons doesn't give you that momentum or that like, but then sometimes it's what you need. It's like, so it's an interesting dance. And I found it fascinating how you said to really unpack your path, focus on yourself and what makes you better not worse? Like focus on doubling down
Focus
on
on what adds value to your life.
that? Yeah.
So observing your life, observing where you focus your energy and attention. And if there's something that you feel adds value to your life, then follow that and see where that takes you.
Like even when I started this podcast, I'd say the podcast was more of a passion, something I did, not necessarily for a means to an end, but it was me following that innate curiosity, that little...
And now it's organically evolved.
Yeah.
Where it's, you know, ultimately throughout your entire experience, especially within your reading, I said to you, everything has taught you to come back to self, to your self-expression, to how you want to express yourself to the world authentically. So all your ups and downs, your challenges has helped you to come back to self and what it is that you see for your vision rather than anyone else's input or vision externally.
Yeah. I'd say that's probably the hardest thing to master, is that focus on self in pursuit of your dreams and desires, because it's so easy to get like
distracted and consumed.
Fuck, it is a...
And meditation doesn't have to look like having your legs crossed, closing your eyes and meditating for an hour. Okay. I am a mum. I have 2 young children under 4 years old. I don't have time to meditate all the time. But for me, what drops me into a really meditative state of being without meditating is presence.
Fanging it on a motorbike.
Yeah, exactly. I used to ride motorbikes out in the bush, and I've got my motorcycle license. And for me, it helped me to be so present with myself in that moment that insights for my own journey will drop in without even me trying to intentionally access that. It was because I was in a space of stillness and peace. And that's what we need to cultivate more in our life, that stillness and peace, to be able to open up that dialogue, that inner dialect with ourself, with our higher self, our intuition. We need that stillness. Otherwise, the monkey mind will distract us with all the different thoughts and all the responsibilities and all the things that we need to do. This is why I always emphasize the importance of stillness and time in self-reflection, time in solitude, even if it's 20 minutes a day. Just doing a tune in with yourself. What is it that lights me up? What is it that I could change in my life that will help me to feel more connected? Being more observant of your life and more intentional with your actions.
Are you a big advocate then for following like your passions and things that light you up?
Most definitely. And I feel like if we just start, we may even notice that it may take us on a different direction, but there's wisdom within that experience. And you will come back to what lights you up, or you'll come back to the aspect of self that brings a sense of clarity.
Would your response be the same to, let's say there's maybe for your situation, might be just to relate because you're a female, a mum who's got 2 or 3 kids, recently divorced, has no money and is struggling financially. Would your advice to them be follow your passion?
At the moment, in that experience, I would be more focused on getting her to reflect on her recent experience, being able to process and digest what needs healing resolved within her, what needs attention, so that she can do the necessary healing to help her uncover and reconnect with who she truly is.
What made you prescribe that? How did you know to prescribe that?
It's the clear knowing.
Yeah.
Again, for a person that has just gone through a divorce, there needs to be that time in reflection and around healing resolve as to what went wrong, what you could have changed, so that you can evolve through that experience, so that you don't call in that same experience again, so that you can learn from it. So I think what is most important, again, it's pursuing yourself. It's looking at how we can better ourselves, better our lives, getting to know ourselves more deeply, so that we don't get caught up in these repetitive patterns. With mothers, it's so easy to get consumed with everyone else and being of service to everyone else that we lose our center of self. We lose our creative spark for life. So I feel that it's important for mothers specifically to come back to what makes them happy, to come back to their truth, to come back to nurturing themselves. When we begin to nurture ourselves, we begin to create that deepened relationship with ourselves where we can tune into our intuition, rather than getting caught up in survival mode.
It's a tough space living in survival mode, isn't it?
Definitely.
So just so people can get a better understanding of how your mind works, are you able to like read my mind now? Like, can you, like, how does it work? Run me through.
Okay. So when I have a reading, when someone books in a reading for me, that is giving me permission to access their consciousness. I can't walk around reading people's minds.
Could you if you wanted to?
If I wanted to a certain degree, but it's also pushing boundaries in that way. Yeah. So my gift, and I believe that God has given me this gift to be able to be of service to others, to help them better understand themselves, their purposefulness. And I feel like when I use this gift to better people's lives, I'm able to be really, really specific in the information that I receive. I feel that going around reading people's minds or tuning into lottery numbers and things like that, that is not using your gifts to, I guess, help community and help humanity. That is using your gifts to better yourself.
Yeah.
In a way that is a little bit selfish. So I can't use my gifts in that capacity, but I can use my gifts when someone comes to me and wants to receive deeper insight about their life or a situation, a relationship, their purpose, whatever it may be. I'm able to access that information in really intricate details.
What are the main topics people come to you for? Is it business, relationships,
health? I have a lot of people come to see me around health issues, or they're not able to get a diagnosis. They're not sure what's going on with their health. What I like to look at is a root cause. So I look at the emotion that has manifested that disease. Because when we look at disease, it's dis-ease within the physical body that manifests literally.
Yeah.
So I look at what the root cause is. So I will go into their timeline, their past timeline, and I'll look at whether it's a trauma or something that has happened in their life where their body is still holding that significant event, and I help to bring clarity around that event by pulling forward the information that relates to that. And that helps them to better understand, okay, the symptoms started manifesting when that trauma or that experience happened. And then I start to connect with their higher self, and I ask their higher self, their intuition, what is it that you need to find healing, resolve? What is going to support you? And I'll get very specific information. Sometimes it will be, even though I'm not a herbalist, sometimes it will be specific herbs or specific medications or certain things that they need to go and explore, or it might be spiritual practices.
So you'll say stuff that you, Teal, outside of the reading don't know what it is. Like you might say
exactly.
something.
Yeah, my human self is not even familiar. I will often get like even names of herbs that I have not even heard of before. Mugwort, holy basil. I'm not a naturopath. I don't know. But that clear knowing will give me that information. And when I look at and I reflect that back to them and their symptoms, it literally is the perfect remedy for them.
Wow.
So it's looking at what your personal remedy is, because you have all the answers within you.
It's crazy, eh? I can speak. So if anyone's listening, with my first reading with you, I had a partnership business arrangement that I needed clarity on. I had so many things in the air that was like, I wanted to have a bit of, not predict the future, but just have clarity on what was to transpire given my current situation. And you nailed it to the T of what was going to happen, what timeline it was going to happen on, and how it would unfold, which gave me, at that present moment, because I believe in this stuff, because I've sat in ceremony, we've had so many like crazy woo-woo experiences that are lived now. It's not just like me hoping and praying or thinking that this stuff works. So I had this experience with you, and you gave me this knowing, which then made me feel confident and gave me this like knowing then that things would transpire and would work out, which then helped my journey just stay more grounded and poised, as opposed to like freaking out and like fuck.
I very much echo what you already know to be true in your heart, and it gives you that confirmation. Our mind needs that confirmation.
Yeah.
So when I'm tuning in, I tune into things that you've been thinking about, things that your intuition has already planted in your mind, but you may not have actioned. So
like even that, when we did that the
ecosystem of the business,
you had like
yes.
My website that we did for the bowsides.au had like the podcast buyers and events, and you literally had the exact same thing.
Yes. So I will get images of certain things that will help you to connect and relate to the information that I'm sharing as well. So it's very specific in nature, the information that I channel, and it can relate to past, present, future information to help you better understand yourself, your future choices, anything that is really pivotal in your future timeline, and how you can get the best results through following your intuition and following your heart.
Yeah. And you were able to do that before our session, you eyes of the window of the soul, connect to my higher self.
Yeah. So it's
have this
almost
conversation?
like a channeling practice. So what I do is I have the picture and I'm basically making that connection energetically through the picture, and I have a pen and paper with me. So it's automatic writing and channeling practice where I go into a little bit of an altered state, like a meditative state, where my human self is not actually aware of what I'm writing.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I'm writing all this information that is actually coming from you, your higher self. The reason why I write this down before, instead of having, I guess, writing it down and channeling while I'm speaking to you, is because with my psychic ability, claircognizance, I receive information and it comes through very quickly. If you look at psychics and you reflect the way that they speak and operate, they talk really, really quickly. So if I get interrupted, I miss that next bubble or that next insight that comes through. So that's why I get into a really clear meditative state. I write all of the information, channel all of the information for you, and then I give you feedback. So I'll get images of things that pop up in my third eye that will connect and relate to you. You know, I worked with only recently a gentleman that was in construction. He was actually originally in real estate, and now he has a business called Build Hire. And basically I had like images of like a top hat in terms of a construction hat. Yeah. Then I had hammers and all these things. And I'm like, well, that doesn't really connect and relate. My human self was saying that doesn't really relate to his, experience of real estate too, that I was really clearly picking up on. But your higher self will give me certain information to help me kind of piece it together, and it will mean everything to you. Because my human self doesn't know you, my human self reflects back and goes, okay, what does this mean? It may seem a little bit random, but nothing is ever random.
So then when you told, like, how did that connect to that guy?
Okay, so what he was doing was he was transitioning from working in real estate to starting up a business where he was renting out building equipment, different equipment to help with building. Okay, so for him, he connected and related to that because it was literal physical construction items that I was picking up on, which is different from his career path that I had also picked up on.
Gotcha. So he was doing real estate and maybe had a
and he wanted
desire.
This is a new business, a new idea that he had. He wanted to see whether I'd pick up on it.
Yeah, and you were just able to just pick up on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you pick up on like people's dead people?
I do have the capacity to do that, most definitely. It's not a focal point for me because I really like to tune into how people can better their lives in terms of their purposefulness and connect to passion. But sometimes when I'm in a session and a past loved one wants to come in, I'll get a message from them and I'll definitely deliver in terms of letting them know what that is. Sometimes I was doing a reading about 2 years ago where I kept seeing, I was just flowing in the reading, and I kept seeing lily flowers being placed in literally my peripheral image. Yeah. Yep. Within the third eye. Basically, I kept having these flowers being placed on the table, and I was like, okay, I need to share with you that there's a woman that looks very similar to you, and she keeps bringing me lily flowers. And this client said, wow, my sister passed away a few years ago, and on her literal casket, we placed lily flowers because she loved those flowers. It was something that she connected to peace, and it was something that I still connect with her through buying peace flowers, the peace lily flowers, and placing them in my space. And it helps me to connect and remember her in the happy times.
Can you share the story about the guy that you did the reading for the investments?
Yes. So I was living in Peru at the time, and there was a gentleman that I connected with that came to see me for a reading, and he was ex-military. He'd gone to Peru for healing. So he was working with plant medicines, ayahuasca, to help heal his relationship with himself and the trauma that he experienced, his PTSD. Anyway, he was at the end of, I guess, his journey in terms of living in Peru because he was running out of money. So he came to me and he said, what is my purposefulness? How can I make money? How can I be successful? So when I tuned into his timeline, I saw him exploring, and I don't know too much of it, my human self, exploring cryptocurrency and trading and these things. And I shared that with him, and he said, actually, I've had that idea and I've started to explore that. And he said, I'm going to list to you now a number of different coins or different tokens or whatever it may be that I want you to tune into and tell me what you think is going to be most successful. So there was a whole list of like 15 different types of cryptocurrencies. I tuned in and I circled one in particular, and I couldn't remember, because if I did, I would have probably invested in it myself. But after his session, I returned to Australia for 6 months to get my daughter's citizenship because she's Peruvian. And I returned back to Peru, and I noticed like he had purchased 2 properties. He had like at his property, he had saunas, he had like all this money, this guy. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? He's like, you know, that cryptocurrency that you told me to invest in, I've made millions from it. And now I'm trading every day. And, you know, I'm so grateful for that insight, because I was literally down to my last dollar. And you being able to tune into that has literally given me a new lease on life. Now I'm able to really tune into this cryptocurrency that I want to focus on and make a lot of money and reinvest.
Could I ask you the same question? Like hypothetically?
Yes.
And you could actually tell me what to invest in?
Most definitely. If I'm in a session and you have an idea or a vision, you don't specifically even need to give me an idea or an inclination. I'll be able to tune into where you need to invest. What area, what, I guess, whether it's a property, whether it's a cryptocurrency, whatever it may be that is going to create the success, I'm able to hone in on that and share that with you in the reading. That's without crazy. Any prior knowledge.
And would you, when you give that, would you invest in it yourself? Like now that
When I'm in a psychic reading, I'm in such a channeled state that my human self is not actually taking notes on what I'm saying.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So oftentimes I can't actually remember what I've shared. I have a lot of clients come to me and said, hey, you gave me this timeline and it actually manifested. And, you know, you said this to me. And I'm like, my human self can't remember, because in that moment I'm connected with my higher self. I'm connected with source, and I'm channeling that information from source and from you. So my human self doesn't specifically remember the exact reading.
What about the lady or the person that met their partner?
Oh, incredible. So I had a lady who came to see me that was at her wit's end when it came to love. She had so many failed relationships, and she was literally giving up on love. And she came to me and said, you know, is love a part of my reality? Like, am I going to find love? And I said to her, you know, I tuned in and I said, I feel like there is someone literally waiting on the cusp of your reality. You just need to place yourself in the right environment. I said to her, after this reading that we do, I want you to go for a walk. I want you, and at the time I was living on the south coast, okay, so just south of Sydney. I said to her, I want you to go for a walk. I want you to walk on a track called the Sublime Track. And this track is in Ostermere. It's basically a stair walk that a lot of people do.
Is that on the south coast too?
On the south coast, yeah. It's extremely beautiful. I said, I feel you're going to meet the love of your life there. Literally after this session, I want you to go straight there, because I see a man with big, beautiful blue eyes and a big smile waiting there for you. And I never thought anything of it, okay? And months had gone past, and I actually ran into her in Bellingen and with this specific man. And she said to me, I listened to what you said. I went on that track and I actually met the love of my life. I met him there. That's and crazy, now we've moved to Bellingen. I've left the corporate world. She was at the time working with breath work. So she was studying breath work, and her whole trajectory of her life changed just from listening to that insight and that wisdom that came through around this man being on the cusp of her reality. So that literally changed her life. And my human self was shocked, but my higher self obviously wasn't.
It's crazy to hear like some of the success stories. Like I've experienced a success story. There's been others like you share with the money and the relationship. How did you develop this capacity and gift? Is it something that we could potentially look to develop ourselves? I'd be curious to hear the origin story of it, because something that I'm trying to practice more as I mature in my understanding of self is to reclaim my power, like be self-sufficient as much as possible, but also to have the understanding that we're interdependent, we rely on community. But yeah, would love to hear your perspective on this, if we can develop ourselves to guide ourselves more independently of, say, needing to go and see yourself.
So I believe that we all have the capacity to be intuitive. I feel that intuition is like a muscle. Like I've mentioned many times, if you don't use it, you lose it. So you need to start creating practices and self-reflection time where you're tuning into your intuition, where you're listening. Or maybe perhaps you have like a little bit of wisdom that pops in and you start actioning it. The more you action it, the stronger the voice becomes, and the more your intuition starts to speak to you, again, through repeated signs and synchronicities. So once you start listening, you start to create a trusting relationship with self, where you start to be able to determine, okay, this is my intuition sharing this insight with me now, as opposed to the ego.
Yeah. What's the difference between the two? Like, what's the ego?
So the ego is the aspect of self that is really ungrounded, is really rushed. It's the mind. The ego is the mind, okay? Where the intuition is the subtle aspect of self. It's the inner knowing. It's the gut instinct. It speaks to us again through repeated signs and synchronicities. So if we don't lean into it, we almost don't listen to it. It's very subtle when we receive it.
Yeah. And so would you say you were born with the gift? Like,
most definitely. So within my family dynamic, my grandmother, she was a psychic as well. She had claircognizance. And I also have a twin brother who's also has this capacity too. He's also psychic. So basically when I was a young girl, my grandmother used to work with something called psychosomatics and psychometry practices, where she would have a stack of magazines. She would cut like a picture out of the magazine or an item, and she would place it in an envelope, and she would give me that envelope, and I wouldn't know what was in there. She would give me a pen and paper, and she would ask me to tune in, to close my eyes and tune in to what I felt. Okay. And then I would start to see images like within my third eye. I was able to retain information about what was in the envelope and write it down. And then it was like a little psychic testing that she was doing. She would open the envelope, she would show me the image, and she would say, wonderful, okay, you picked up on this being red, you picked up on this being a woman wearing a red coat. And that helped me to critique and fine tune this ability of claircognizance. And she would do that up until I was about the age of 10, where my intuition was very, very much active in my life. I was able to connect with spirits, past loved ones. I was able to tune into my own timeline and what it is that I needed to follow for myself. So I guess when I reflect back, I've always had a part of myself that's been very connected to the intellect. As you know, I spent a lot of time, a big chunk of my life working in law, working corporate law. And it's a polarity, So there's this aspect of me that's connected to my intuition and connected to my intellect. And for me, I've always had to do the dance of, I guess, blending the two and knowing when to focus on the intellect and bring the intellect forward and when to focus on the intuition. So for example, when I was working in law, when I needed to use my analytical mind, I would drop into the intellect and I would use specifically the intellect. When I was in my daily life, when it came to focusing on deepening my gifts and my abilities, I would listen to my intuition as to go and do this course, go and do Vipassana, go and do a meditation.
Have you done Vipassana?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
nice.
I did Vipassana actually first time when I was 18 years old.
Wow.
Yes. So that really allowed me to fine tune my ability in connecting and relating to, I guess, the practice of meditation, in quietening the mind and stilling the mind. I still had that monkey mind. I still had that aspect of myself that was really distracted. So I needed to learn to really come into self-mastery around quietening that aspect, that analytical mind, the logical mind, because that was really active for me, especially when I was studying. I relied on that part of my mind to get me through that period in time, where now I don't nurture that part of myself as much because it's not relevant in my life right now. I'm not working in law. I'm working in spiritual practices. I'm working as a psychic. So I tend to nurture more of my intuition, more of my creativity, my innovative thinking, that aspect of myself.
What do you think is the most powerful tool, Vipassana, plant medicine, psychic abilities to help people?
I feel it's really dependent on how you connect and relate to it. Some people don't resonate with plant medicine. Some people really rely upon it. I feel the biggest tool that we can use is the stillness. I keep talking about the stillness, the self-inquiry, meeting life with curiosity, being curious as to why you do the things you do, why you have certain limitations, why you feel stuck in certain areas. Bringing deeper awareness around those areas will reveal a lot to you around why you are the way you are.
Even because like we've done other stuff where like just simple breath work and you get your T-Rex arms, or like sound healing and different things like that that don't require plant medicine.
Again, what you were doing in that moment, you're creating that point of stillness.
You're
creating that point of stillness to fine-tune your receptivity and your connection. So that's what we do with sound. There's also frequency that supports your healing evolution as well, that you use through sound healing. So that's very supportive of your spiritual evolution as well. But mostly what you want to do is create experiences of stillness and reflection.
Stillness and reflection. I think when I reflect on my life, the big parts that have helped me transform or get clarity is when I've done stillness and reflection. Like the Vipassana, come out of that, you like, it just gives you so much clarity around why you do the things you do. And then you can then off the back of that make new choices.
And you can literally rewire your brain.
Yeah.
You know, I keep talking about us being the conscious curators of our reality. Well, if we're not aware of our limitations, how can we change our behavior?
Yeah.
So that's why we need to use self-reflection to be able to really tune into, okay, why do I do this? Where is that belief or that conditioning come from? And how can I come into healing, resolve, and address that? And this is what psilocybin is really wonderful for. It literally rewires your brain in real time.
So good.
So it allows you to refine your behaviors and literally change the way that you think and perceive life. If you want lasting change, you need to change the way that you perceive and receive life.
I can remember there was one time when we were in ceremony, I was a bit cheap. I don't know why. I had this desire to sit up during the meditation. Everybody else was like lying down, blindfolds off. And I kind of sat up because
I remember this.
Yeah. And then one part of it, I don't know if I was sitting up or lying down, or there was one part where you came over to my body. Like I was lying down at this point and you're like doing like this, like air bending stuff on me.
Energy healing.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was like, you're full like air bending on me. I was like, what the fuck's going on here?
So that's something also that I do as well, which is energy healing. So if I feel that someone is going through a mental process and they're in their mind, so your mind in that moment was telling you to sit up, it didn't want to face the experience or the memory that was trying to reveal itself to you. So your mind distracted you and wanted you to sit up. That's why I asked you to lie back down again. And energetically, I was supporting you in shifting the density that was coming into your field with that memory, with that thought that could have been experienced as negative to your human self.
Do you believe in like positive and negative, or is it like?
Most definitely. I think that we live in a dualistic reality.
Yeah.
You know, it's necessarily to have positive and negative experiences because it helps us to learn, to grow and evolve. Like I mentioned, experiences of adversity help us to meet our inner edges more deeply. To meet our threshold. Otherwise, if we're just coexisting in life and everything is happy, then we just become complacent, don't we? Sometimes we need to be a little bit rattled. Sometimes we need to have these, you know, divine interventions, whether they're perceived as positive or negative, to get us out of the rut or get us out of this repetitive way of thinking, being and living.
Yeah. It's like a bittersweet puree because like sometimes it's like, fuck, but then positive come out of it. So bring me back. So 0 to 10, you're working with your grandma who's a psychic as well. That's getting you to do like training. And then can we touch on the fact your dad passed away as well?
Yes. So my dad passed away when I was very young, when I was 9 years old.
Did that activate stuff in you as well? Or did it?
Most definitely, especially he passed away of bowel cancer, and it was quite a quick process, but he was also experiencing a lot of paranormal experience. You know, he would often tell me that whilst he was dying, that God would come to him, and God was standing at the end of his bed, and he would tell me, you know, I kept telling God that I wasn't ready to leave. And at one point I remember opening the door to the room that he was in. He was a resident at Calvary Hospital, which is a hospital in Sydney in a place called Cogra, where it's palliative care. So you will literally go there in your transition, your end of life. And I remember opening the door and I heard the screen door to the balcony close, and my dad was in there alone. And he was on the bed lying there. And I said, Dad, you know, who was that? What was that? He said, oh, that was God just leaving. He said that I can have a couple of more days with you, which was so profound, you know. And wow. I reflect back on all the experiences that he personally shared with me, and his death process was an awakening for him in a sense. You know, it helped him to reconnect with his relationship with God and to...
Is God... Can I just pause you on that? With God, you hear like the religious versions of God, like Christianity God, Muslim God, Jew God.
There's many representations of God. For me, God is a consciousness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, in his representation of it, in his mind, he connected and related to the religious God.
Like a cry,
Like Christ.
Yeah.
So for me, again, we will perceive what we most connect and relate to. And for him at that point in time, he was spending a lot of time in the chapel, praying for his healing. The chapel was attached to the hospital that he was in. So that's why Christ consciousness represented itself in the form of God for him.
Yep. Okay. And then he started having these experiences. You're there.
Yes.
Shit's getting real.
And actually a really deeply profound experience for myself, along with my grandmother, after my father had passed away, it was his 1 year anniversary, and we returned after he had passed away. We returned to our town where we grew up in, and that was a place called West Wyalong. So West Wyalong is it's very west. It's about an hour and a bit inland from Wagga Wagga. So basically we returned there just to reconnect with our roots and reconnect with family. And basically one evening, it was the evening of my father's 1 year anniversary of his passing. And my grandmother and I were outside. It was dusk. She decided she picked some flowers from the garden and wanted to put it outside. So she tied it basically to the fence paling. Anyway, while she was out there, she noticed there was a car coming down the driveway, and it was quite a long driveway. And I ran out and I noticed it coming down too. It was moving really, really slowly. The passenger door was open and the driver's door was open, and it was somewhat rolling. So we both kind of walked out and met this car at the driveway, and we noticed someone was in there, and I heard a voice, and it was almost like a familiar male voice. And I thought to myself, what's going on here? And my grandmother looked at me, and this voice shouted, can you help me? I need you to push the car. I need to jumpstart my car. So we both walked around to the back of the car. And I looked at my grandmother, I'm like, wow, we're not going to really be able to do much. You're in your 70s and I'm a young girl. But we tried anyway. So we started to push and the car started. When we walked around to the side of the car, to the driver's side, we looked in and noticed a man sitting there, but he looked a bit different. He was a little bit translucent somewhat. He opened the door and he stood out of the car. And I noticed when he stood out that he actually didn't have any physical feet, that he was somewhat hovering and translucent. And straight away, I kind of looked at my grandmother and she was really peaceful and calm about it. And this man said, he had an Akuba hat on, and I couldn't really get a good gauge of his face. And he said to my grandmother, thank you, Nancy, for helping me. Thank you for helping me. And I want you to look after the children for me. I want you to make sure that they're okay. And my grandmother looked up and she noticed straight away it was my father. It was my father in spirit form. And she said to him, Richard, is that you? And he literally jumped back in the car. And this was a physical car. Closed the door. He smiled and winked at me and literally drove down the driveway. And this physical car literally just slowly vanished into the vastness. It was wild. It was so wild, that experience. And it was wild because I was there with my grandmother experiencing the same thing.
Yeah. So you both could validate the experience.
Yeah, both physically had that experience.
It's crazy because I've only experienced woo-woo-ish stuff to that extreme in ceremony where you're
in that altered state. You're very open. You're very connected to consciousness.
But different when you're just
and it's in real time.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
A physical car.
It really stays with you, those experiences.
I bet. So then how do you go from that to corporate law? What? And then back to reading people's minds?
I think always my path was to be a psychic. And I guess there was aspects of myself that didn't really at certain points want to go down that path, especially.
Why do you think that was?
I feel like there was, when I was younger, there was a little bit of resistance, especially when I was really young, because at night especially, I found myself seeing a lot of the energies, orbs, spirits. And I guess when I was really young, it scared me to a certain degree. I remember a lot of the times I would sleep with the blanket over my head. And I feel like a lot of these opposing energies, maybe darker energies, were trying to come into my field to I guess, put me off following this path, through fear, through scaring me, so to speak. So I kind of shut down my abilities at a certain point because it was invoking fear within me. But it was always there with me, that intuition, that ability to communicate with past loved ones. I always had that capacity. And I guess when I was studying and when I was working in law, I didn't really nurture that part of myself because I didn't feel that it was relevant in my life at that point in time. But I always found people coming to me for readings. Like even when I was working in law, they're like, how do you know that person's not telling the truth? I'm like, I just know. And then sure enough, something will happen and information would be revealed to confirm that. So for me, I was always doing readings for friends, for colleagues and things like this. And I got to a point, and the biggest catalyst for me was the birth of my son. So I didn't want to continue working in law, working really long hours at the time. I was working in a law firm in Sydney CBD, living down in the South Coast, which was like a 4-hour return journey. Yeah. So I would leave at like 5 a.m. I would get home at like 7.
That's crazy.
And it wasn't realistic. And I knew that if I was to continue doing that, I wouldn't be able to be a present mother. So he very much gifted me that choice, to really step into my gifts and to let go of something that was no longer serving me personally. So that's when I started doing readings, and someone asked me, you're incredible at this. Do you have a website? And I'm like, no, I don't actually. And I had someone come into my field that helped me with a website, and all these synchronicities and right-aligned people were entering my field. So it very much was an organic transition, and I've always worked through word of mouth, and I've been able to, as you know, travel overseas and take my work with me everywhere and support my family. And I've been really, really blessed with the incredible people and the experiences that I've been able to have because of my abilities.
Yeah, that's crazy to hear. I guess now that you've kind of worked in the law and the monetary material world and the spiritual world, a question I have for you is, how do money and spirituality actually work together in your view? Are they even in the same conversation, or do people force them together?
I believe that money is connected to spirituality because I feel that money is connected to your self-worth.
Money's connected to your self-worth.
Yes. So those that are extremely successful, like we discussed, they have an inner knowing. They have a confidence within themselves. We experience, I guess, what they call poverty consciousness when we have a negative mindset around money, whether it's an upbringing, whether it's something that has been projected upon us through our family. Maybe we struggled with money when we were growing up, and we've created this belief that we're not worthy and deserving of money. So I really feel that we need to get confident in our worth, in what we deserve, in receiving abundance.
Why do you think poverty consciousness is such a big thing? Like, there's so many spiritual groups that it's like because it's the gold medal is the person that could be the poorest. It's
a huge limitation with poverty consciousness because, as you know, money makes the world go round. Yeah. If we don't have money, then we can't invest in, our future vision and dream wholeheartedly. If we want to build a retreat center, whatever it may be, we need to have money. Yeah. So I think that we need to. I believe wholeheartedly that consciousness isn't here to defeat spirituality. Consciousness wants us to be abundant on all levels of our being, but it's our inner relationship with our worth around money that really opens up our capacity to create abundance. So coming back to what your beliefs are, coming back to how you connect and relate to money. So for example, people can have relationships with money where it comes and goes. They can't hold on to it. They don't know how to invest in it. When we become more intentional, we can look at, okay, I intentionally want to create more money, so I'm going to create an opportunity where that can happen, whether it's investing in property, whether it's investing in cryptocurrency, whatever it is, whatever you connect and relate to. But usually our limitations are connected to poverty consciousness because we've experienced something negative around money.
Yeah, so like a trauma or a belief that money's the root of all evil or something like that. Yes,
exactly. So it's about refining our, I guess, beliefs around money and using positive mindset and positive reinforcement around our relationship with money.
So if somebody is listening to this and they maybe struggle with money, or they may be broke, or they've just had resistance around it, what would you be prescribing or saying to them from the spiritual lens to help them maybe move through that blockage?
I would recommend them look at their life experiences, reflect on any experiences that have disempowered them through money, and then overwrite that story. Start to invite new behaviors, start to feel abundance, start to use, again, that positive dialogue around calling in more abundance in your reality. Start manifesting, visualizing, start getting creative with what it is that you want to call into your life. Be specific in nature and take inspired action to achieve those goals.
I feel like inspired action is a big one, eh?
It's following your intuition again. It's taking action. You know, we can place all these intentions out into the universe, but if we sit at a desk and do absolutely nothing, those things are not going to come to us. But if we take inspired action and we lean into the uncomfortable, when we learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable and meeting life with curiosity and putting ourselves in situations that help us grow and evolve, that's when these higher timelines, and that's when these situations that support our abundance and opportunities come to us a lot quicker.
Yeah, it's like, even from my experience with, say, for example, the podcast, following that intuitive passion, curiosity, there's been times where maybe Dan at that point in time didn't have the financial resources to, at that point in time, invest in that particular episode or venture. But it's funny how that when I continue to pursue that, irrespective of the circumstances, it's funny how the universe would transpire people, places, events, circumstances to facilitate that progression.
And sometimes those connections that you need to make that bring in that monetary value, that's sometimes just a temporary thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just temporary, and then you'll come full circle. Like for you, it's coming back to self. It's coming back to what your vision is and getting clear, rather than having a lot of external input.
Definitely.
So it served you at a point in time. It served your evolution.
Yeah, kind of get to a point, and then now
get to a point where you're in more now. You're in your flow. You have clear clarity around the direction that you want to move towards.
Like, even to be able to sit and just have a conversation like we're having now, I wouldn't have had that luxury 6 months ago to the same extent. And I think things need to transpire and change to give this the opportunity.
Everything is timely. Everything is perfect, right aligned timing.
Yeah. It's good. It's good to be here. It's good to breathe. So what if I then look at the relationship side of things? Can you sense when people are in a relationship that isn't
serving?
Yeah.
Yes. So when I was younger, I would always get really stifled with sharing this information if I had seen that a relationship was going to end, especially if it was a marriage and there was children involved. I would always be like, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to really dishearten them. But then as I started doing more and more readings, I realized that if I just speak my truth around what I see, then that truth literally penetrates your heart, and there's an aspect of you that already knows that to be true within you. Whenever I share with someone that a relationship isn't in alignment for them, there's always an aspect of them that already knows that to be true. There's already things that are playing out in their life that they're ignoring. There's already signs playing out that they're ignoring. But what I do is I really hone in on what those signs are, and I speak that and reflect that back to them to give them the confirmation that, okay, you're not crazy.
Yeah.
This is actually what's happening in your life.
Yeah.
Whether it's someone, whether it's infidelity, or whether it's, an outgrowing of I guess, connecting and relating within relationship. I always tune into what is happening behind the scenes. I don't just say to someone, okay, your relationship isn't going to work. I will talk about why it isn't working, what is happening, where the disconnect is. I'll also talk to them about whether they want to come into remedy, whether they both want to consciously work together to come into remedy, or whether they're ready to walk away. And I know specifically when people are ready to walk away, and I will share that with them, and it will give them a sense of peace. But also we have these experiences, our relationships are here to teach us. They're our biggest mirrors. So sometimes these relationships, we experience adversity to come back to love, essentially, to come back to connection. It depends on the context of the relationship. It depends on what it is that you are specifically navigating in your life.
What do you mean by they're our biggest mirrors? Like, what is that? terminology.
So
Here, the universe
even-
is a mirror, yada yada.
Literally, even from, I'm going to reflect back on my time in Peru and my time observing Indigenous cultures. And Indigenous cultures, they always had sacred rites of passage when we were entering another evolution in our human journey. And I find that now that we don't have those, what has become our sacred rite of passage or our biggest learning is relationships.
So, for example, Aboriginals might have walkabout.
Yeah, they
That
have
was the
women's
rites of
business,
passage or-
men's business. Yeah, there's certain sacred rites of passage they do. But now that we don't have those sacred rites of passage, there's been this evolution that has happened where the sacred rites of passages and the biggest learnings and lessons come through our relationships. And it may not be, an intimate relationship, a romantic relationship. It could be through a friendship.
Friendships.
Can be through business. That's where our biggest learning and lesson is. So if there's anything unconscious within us that we're not coming into resolve, it will manifest through our direct connection to the people closest to us. So it's about observing what is playing out in your life from a higher perspective rather than getting so emotionally consumed in it that you're not being able to see with clear clarity.
Fucking relationships, eh? They can be. I'm just like reflecting on
But
some of
you
my
can
relationships.
connect to what I've shared in terms of
Yeah.
our biggest learnings and lessons come through our
100%.
relationships.
And they're probably some of the biggest struggles you experience too.
But the biggest growth as well.
And the biggest growth. How have you found your relationships?
I find that
Would you have, like, growing up, a man that would come into your life and, like, you'd know what would happen in advance and stuff?
I had certain men that came into my life that were massive distractions for me, that, I had a partner that wasn't open to me connecting in psychically. It invoked too much fear in him that he didn't even want me to tune in this capacity. And I felt so disconnected and shut off in that relationship. I remember when I ended that relationship, that one day it just literally, my higher self spoke for me, through me, and just said to this man, listen, I'm ending this relationship. I'm not happy. I don't want to be in this relationship anymore. And my human self was like, hang on a minute. No, that's not exactly what I want. And he was so confused. He was standing there like, what's going on here? But my higher self knew that I was becoming so disconnected within myself that I wasn't honoring myself anymore being in that relationship dynamic. And once I ended that relationship, so many opportunities, so many doors opened for me. I was able to reconnect to myself on so many levels.
You know how you're saying that your higher self kind of, like, did that for you?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel there's a part of the universe that, it's almost pre-written in the sense that there's parts of life you can consciously choose and direct, but then there's also this experience behind the scenes that kind of is pre-written in, like, this blueprint of how things transpire?
Most definitely. And I think that before we have this human incarnation, that we choose what experiences that we want to have that is going to help our soul's evolution. Because like I mentioned, I believe that Earth is a school for the soul.
Yeah.
We are here to learn,
university.
grow, and evolve. So we are to have these experiences of hardship so that we can evolve and better understand ourselves and better understand life.
Yeah. It may sound a bit woo-woo, but when I had one of the ceremonies, the message that came to me with the reason why I lost my dad at a young age was that it was like one of the biggest sacrifices you could participate in to experience unconditional, to really have, like, this connection back to source and who you are.
And
have you experienced something like?
Most definitely. I experienced a lot of adversity at a very young age, a lot of death, loss, hardship, so much happening in my life at a very young age. And instead of dropping into victimhood and having that lead and create my story, I allowed that to empower me. And I felt that I had that experience so that I connect and relate to people from all walks of life, so that I can sit with the grieving mother, so that I can
Sit with Daniel having a
yeah, and I even, when I used to live in Sydney, there used to be a man, a beautiful man. He was a homeless man, and he used to sit out the front of the Coles closest to where I lived. And he had such a beautiful nature, such a compassionate heart. I would often sit with him and have a chat with him, and he wasn't an addict or anything like that. He just had a rough life, yeah. And I guess that victimhood really consumed him. He wasn't able to heal from those experiences, but he was always so baffled why I would sit with him and why I would, sit on the side of the road. And at that time I was working in law, so I would often be dressed in corporate wear, and people would look at me quite strangely, like, what is she doing? But I just felt so deeply connected to that man, to his essence beyond his physical appearance, and that brought so much hope and faith in him, and reconnection to himself, that he hadn't completely lost himself. In terms of me being able to see his true self beyond what he looked like. See him for who he truly was.
Yeah. It's funny, it gives you, I can often pick when somebody's gone through, like there's this attraction, not like a physical, like sexual attraction, but there's often like an attraction that I experience.
It's like you feel drawn to that person.
And speaking about it with Tiziana that does the, and he said it was something to how like the universe works. You kind of get attracted to I can't explain it very well, but
like attracts like.
Yeah, it was like this thing he was explaining, and like I was like, oh, I could tell. Not that I was a psychic, but I could tell this person experienced this, and I could kind of just tell from my own like.
They've like sometimes you can really tune into someone's lived wisdom, that they have matured through their lived wisdom, through the experience of hardship, that they hold themselves differently, and that you can really tune into, okay, this person may have had a hard life, but they've grown from that and they've evolved from that, and now they are more in tune with who they are and their own wisdom. And a lot of these people, they are way showers. They are people that are leaders. They are people that have experienced adversity and literally alchemized their adversity, and using their experiences to empower others and help other people feel connected to themselves.
What about depression and anxiety? Do you feel they're rooted in spirituality?
I believe that depression and anxiety happen when there's a soul disconnect, when we are disconnected from our true nature, when we are disconnected from ourself. When we look at...
So would you say it's different than from just like a chemical thing in the brain, or would you say it's our souls disconnected?
When I look at the root, it's a disconnect from the soul self. Because when you are connected and you're in tune with yourself, that you don't really ever feel alone. You always feel supported and connected to yourself. And I feel that a lot of these people that experience anxiety and depression, it's a density, it's a dense feeling, When you experience depression and anxiety, it's like a frequency, it's a vibration, it comes into your field. It only happens when you are of low energy, or if you've had a traumatic experience that invites the experience of anxiety and depression. And what we're to do is it's bringing deeper awareness into the areas of our life that we need to focus on. There's something that needs to be resolved within. It's something that we need to explore, some trauma, some experience that is consuming our life. And the depression is a physical manifestation to bring deeper awareness around that. But what tends to happen is people will take medication, and what that acts is like a Band-Aid. We're putting a Band-Aid on it. We're not actually looking at the root cause. Like, why am I depressed? What is happening here? Why do I feel disconnected from myself? Is it related to an experience? Do I feel unsatisfied in life? Like, what is happening? I feel like when we look at depression, we need to look at it from a mind, body, and spirit perspective. We need to look at
like holistically,
a holistic approach.
Have you experienced depression or anxiety?
I have never experienced depression. I have experienced anxiety, and that was more so postpartum anxiety. I experienced that after the birth of my first son, and I believe that was because it was a huge initiation and transition for me from being a maiden to motherhood, being someone that was hyper independent to having someone that was fully reliant upon me. And I found that at certain points when I was feeling overwhelmed, that I would experience periods of anxiety. And I guess that was because I was allowing that experience and that emotion to wholly consume me. I wasn't allowing myself time to just pause and have the time that I needed just to regulate myself. I was allowing the emotion to consume me, and that was coming up as anxiety for me through that overwhelm.
How did you transmute that?
what I did is I actually worked with breath work. So what I noticed is when I started having anxiety attack in the attacks, the first...
Also, it'd be an actual like
Yeah, it would have
body
been
attack.
an anxiety attack. And it would be something like the first time that it happened to me, I was literally sitting on the bed breastfeeding my son. And I just had this consuming overwhelm of feeling just limited. Like I there were so many things I wanted to do, but I was limited to that room at that point in time, and I was stuck. And I felt it come up in my chest, and then I started to get a real racy heart, and it affected my breath. And then at the time, my partner ran in and he looked at me and he said, come back to the breath, come back to the breath. And that's when I started to be able to self-regulate and calm myself and come back into my center. And when I reflected, I'm like, why did that happen? Like I was literally sitting down peacefully breastfeeding. It was because I paused. I had a moment of pause, and that's when it allowed that emotion that I had been suppressing, that overwhelm, to come up to be able to be felt and observed. And I had the choice in that moment to let it fully consume me and continue with that anxiety attack, or I had the conscious choice to redirect that through reconnecting to the breath. Because the breath, when you focus on the breath, you can't be in a state of overwhelm and panic when you're in this connected breathing, because it pulls you out of your mind and it pulls you into your body, in your body's innate awareness, and anchors your awareness in your heart. So you can't be doing this breath work and thinking at the same time about all the problems that you're having or what you're experiencing. It really anchors you in the present moment, and that's why I love breath so much.
Powerful stuff, eh?
Powerful.
It's good to breathe.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that had been an experience for you.
Mm-hmm.
So you had your son, and then you moved to Peru.
Yes. So I moved to Peru, and the reason why I felt drawn to Peru was because of obviously you being there as well. What you can literally confirm this for me. There is such a profound energy there.
Yeah.
It's the most unique terrain that you'll ever experience in your life. The mountains are alive there. They're like energetic.
Machu Picchu is crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. They're like energetic portals. And, when you move there, you really get like initiated. It's not easy to live there. All the people that live there in the Sagrado Valley, in the Sacred Valley, they always go through some form of like adversity when they arrive to really test them. Like, can they be in this energetic vortex, in this high frequency for a long period of time? And my intention in going there was reconnect to myself, reconnect to my gifts, but also to expand my awareness around plant medicine and working with consciously altered states. And this is where I started to really dive deep into the mind, into the neural aspects and how we can heal the mind working with psilocybin. So predominantly my time there was working with psilocybin, working with rewiring and reprogramming the mind, and working with deepening my connection with this plant medicine in a way that is legal there as well.
Yeah, that's right. Because like what I did in 10 days at Vipassana, you can do in 1 or 2 days with plant medicine.
Yes, because it literally pulls you out of your logical, analytical mind and drops you into this heightened state of awareness where everything is really clear for you. You're able to really dissect the mind. You're able to really look at and see things clearly, why you've experienced that depression, what that related to. Sometimes the psilocybin will take you back to that memory, to that experience, to help you relive it so that you can observe it, feel it, heal it, and integrate it into your life so that it no longer disempowers you, so that you can see clearly why that had to happen, because it's shaped who you are now from an empowering perspective. If you didn't have that experience of depression, you wouldn't have known that lowered state. You wouldn't have been able to pick yourself up from that state and be the empowered version of you that you are today.
Yeah.
When I look at artists as well, I notice a lot of artists, they really navigate a hard time in terms of...
They do, don't they?
They always do. They're very susceptible to depression, but the reason why they had these consistent ups and downs is because from the depths, from the darkness, they are to utilize that and to tap into their creative flow and to create something really beautiful and to catapult themselves up, take that experience of darkness and alchemize it and turn it to beauty. So when I have clients that are struggling with depression and they're artists, I tell them like this is actually a gift for you. It's to help you to experience polarity. It's to help you to create beauty from something that is all consuming. what happens is our human self gets so consumed, sometimes we don't actually see the beauty in it. But if we can really lean into it with curiosity, we're able to, again, catapult ourselves out of that experience and receive the lesson and learning.
From my experience, like dealing with plant medicine, from my journey, it was like before it, the connection between, say, source and myself was quite limited. It was like clouded. There wasn't much clarity. Then you might be in a journey and you're on some type of plant medicine. It might be psilocybin or ayahuasca or chum or whatever it is. And then it like opens up. It's like a telescope that, is it a telescope that you can see space?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like a telescope where it's like it punches through the cloud and the smoke. And for that period of time, it creates a hole which you can see through clearly. And then that then for me, that hole then stays there, but you've got like so much layers to go on. And each ceremony you're
peeling back the layers. You're peeling back the conditioning, the synthetic conditioning that you've picked up through childhood, through society, society's expectations of us, all the conditioning, all the programming that we have. What psilocybin does is it deprograms our mind, and it strips us literally away from all the synthetic and aspects of ourself that is not our true self, and it brings us back to wholeness, completeness.
Yeah, it feels like you're coming home.
It feels like you're coming home. It's a reconnection to self. It's a reconnection to, again, that authentic expression.
Yeah.
But first we need to understand why we are the way that we are. So that's why the psilocybin will take us back to memories and experiences that we've found difficult to process, so that we can see the lesson embedded within it.
Do you think that's a path for everyone, or
not necessarily? I feel like it needs to be, for me, working with plant medicine, it needs to be a full yes. There's many opportunities where I can sit with plant medicine when there's an incredible curandero coming from the Amazon and everybody speaks so highly of him, and this is exactly what happened. I got invited to this ceremony and it wasn't a full yes for me. So I didn't sit in that. What I needed at that point in time was just to be with myself, just to have some stillness and some quiet time, rather than taking anything synthetic.
Sometimes
pedicure. Some self-nurturance. Sometimes our biggest evolutions come from that empowered knowing that we access within ourselves. Just from being still. That's why a lot of people receive a lot from Vipassana, because it creates that intentional time to really tune in without any external distraction from life.
I feel like for me that set the foundation to sit in ceremony grounded. That was like the prerequisite for me to have that although like in ceremony you're fucking all over the shop sometimes, but I think it gave me that confidence and maybe that just extra layer of having sat with myself and gone through the storms naturally without needing,
and also learning to be comfortable with sitting in yourself in the uncomfortable experience. Like when you're meeting psilocybin, it's like you're meeting great mystery. You don't know what's going to happen. It can be a really beautiful expanding experience depending on where your mindset is. Say if you're experiencing depression, well, there's going to be an aspect of you that's going to have to meet that darker element of yourself that you're turning away from, that you're not acknowledging. So every experience that you have with psilocybin is very, very different.
Yeah.
And again, it's working to rewire your brain. It's working to literally recreate the story that your mind is telling you of why you are the way that you are.
It's such a crazy journey.
It's really profound.
But it's good. It's good. Oh, I love it. I'd love to get your opinion on what happens to us when we die.
Okay. So I believe that consciousness is not just limited to the mind. So what do I mean by that? I mean that when we pass away, consciousness just doesn't end when we die. It continues on beyond the physical experience. So for example, when we pass away, I believe that we return to source and we have this conscious choice whether we want to have another physical experience, another physical incarnation, or whether we want to explore different realities. If we want to have a different experience from what we had in our last human experience, whatever it is that is going to support our soul's evolution is what we'll call into our field. So consciousness is continuous. It never dies. It's eternal. And you'll experience this sometimes through psilocybin because it removes the ego at times. And when you remove the ego, it's your soul self. It's your pure consciousness. You don't think of yourself as Dan in the physical body. You are connected to something that is a higher power, something that is so grand, beyond human mind explanation.
The one thing I wanted to ask you, T, because we're about to wrap up soon. We've had a really good conversation, which I feel like has explored the woo, but also has kept it quite grounded in like the practicality of things. So in terms of practical steps moving forward for people that are listening that want to strengthen their own intuition, what would you be prescribing?
So first and foremost, I would look at creating intentional time and space to nourish what I call your spiritual intellect. So whether that's listening to podcasts that you feel resonant with, whether that is reading a book that you feel drawn to, a really good book that I highly recommend is The Body Keeps Score. It helps you, yes. So it helps you understand the connection between mind, body, and spirit, and how we store trauma in our body and how it affects us. How it can physically manifest, but how it can also change our behaviors and our personality. So it's very much a book on healing and understanding that concept. But coming back, it's doing the inner work. What do I mean by doing the inner work? It's meeting life and yourself with curiosity. So explore, again, why you feel stuck in certain areas, why you have certain fears. Explore what that is and lean into that uncomfortable feeling to be able to break through that, to be able to rewire the story that your mind is telling you.
Love it. It's I found for me in my journey, I'm 28, young, old, whatever you want to perceive it as. For me, the biggest gift I've given myself has been that gift of curiosity to learn and understand and put myself through experiences that have given me that greater connection to self, whether it be breath work, meditation, plant medicine, going overseas and experience the native ways of life, or even doing a sweat lodge in some of the Native American styles of ceremony. And I couldn't speak of it highly enough for the transformation. And you have been a massive part of that journey for me. So I want to say thank you. And for those that maybe want to have an experience like I have had with yourself, where could people find you, A, and B, what experiences or like works do you provide to people that can maybe benefit from the work you do?
So I've recently relocated to the Northern Rivers in a place called Crystal Creek.
Which is north of Byron for anyone.
North of Byron. And we're in the process of creating a healing space, a healing sanctuary, where we are going to explore the depths of the mind, working with different somatic healing releases, breath work, exploring different facets of ourselves from that mind, body, and spirit connected space. I also offer psychic readings in person there and also online. So the best place to connect with me is through Instagram, teal_soul_, or through my website, The Sacred Breath of Life. Teal Soul, The Sacred Breath of Life.
Love it. And if anyone's listening to on my website, bothsides.au, I've also in the partners page got your page if anyone wants to find it and can't remember the words there on there too. Couldn't speak about it highly enough. I've done a few psychic readings that were super powerful for my journey, and then I've also sat with Teal overseas and she's facilitated works for me as well. Couldn't recommend it highly enough. Ben, we've actually had on the podcast before as well, so if you wanted to, the two are like this awesome dynamic duo. So, and then you got a women's thing coming up?
Yes. So I have.
Fuck, I was going to message you saying, I think I might identify as a woman that month, so I can
So
come.
I have a really powerful women's retreat coming up in Byron Bay, and I'm co-facilitating with a dear sister of mine, Anastasia. She's an incredible human behavior decoder. So really understand your behaviors. So we're working with psychic activation, reconnecting with your intuition. We're working with different ceremonies, sound healing, cacao ceremonies to help you to connect with your heart. And we're really working with reprogramming the mind, helping empower women, especially women that have, I guess, lost their center of self. Maybe they have been in the corporate world and they have been distracted by what they truly want and desire. So helping them to reconnect to their authentic expression, their authentic self. So that's really exciting. That is on the 22nd of October to the 25th of October, held in Byron Bay, in the heart of Byron Bay.
Love it. Gotta love Byron. My last question for you, for the listeners, is what would you like us to walk away with today after listening to this episode?
So the greatest thing that I can leave with you is to trust in the process of life. When something is falling away, trust it. Know that it is creating conscious spaciousness in your life for something new, something more empowering, something more connecting, a more connected experience. Especially when you know it doesn't align with you anymore, you know you've outgrown it. Don't hold on to it. The mind wants to hold on to our safe, comfortable, familiar. Let it go. Allow it to be. Allow it to alchemize. Allow the beauty of what wants to come forward, the rebirth that wants to come forward to be.
Beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Teal Soul. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys, for watching this. If you got value out of the show, do me a favor, hit subscribe, comment below with what landed for you, and send this to someone who you think needs to hear it. That's generally how we grow this thing, one recommendation at a time. I'll see you in the next one.